black turtleneck.
I was like,
she is fixed face.
yeah, I felt like I was
That's what we always joke about.
I was too well balanced.
We always do
15 minutes? Really?
It's flying.
Just gonna check you out, see what happens, see if your estimates are good.
Minutes, 75 miles an hour.
Okay, so what's your best judgment that Google will say how long it will take to get to the airport from here?
Which airport?
The airport.
LAX?
Right now,
Well, it should tell you whether it's
38
rush hour.
minutes.
38 minutes?
I think it'll tell you 29 and it will be wrong.
Yeah.
It's pretty good at updating very quickly on traffic nowadays.
I feel like it's pretty tricky in LA still.
Ladies and gentlemen, any other guesses?
45 minutes.
26.
29.
29! Exactly.
But it will take you probably 38.
Yeah.
I find Waze more accurate here.
Do you agree?
Yeah.
Wait.
Waze always, it feels like it takes
Waze.
me in a weird, like, why am I, listen, I really just need to go 3 blocks this way, now it's going right, left,
Yeah.
right, left.
Well, I think that's why it's good in LA because things are so weird and changeable and people are actually updating it.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be updating while you're driving.
Yeah, wait.
No, I think you have to say I'm not driving or something, don't you?
It picks up traffic based on people that are logging in.
So it's like a, yeah, it's like a social mapping, so
Like
we're all in
Yelp.
Waze, and I'm ahead of you by 2 miles and I'm stopping traffic. It measures how slow I'm moving, and it will say to your phone, you know, it'll just detour you around where I'm at.
It is better if you have 2 people in the car because
Yeah.
it takes some, you can't really move. Don't look at me,
She's not having presence with
She's having
I have that
low
invisible-
Low control presence.
No, I'm actually hoping for the uncontrollable.
Do we have the brief up there as well, Joan? Just for,
Excuse me?
do we have the brief up there as well?
Oh, brief. No, I don't.
What gets me about MapQuest is that they open
It's a
2,
lot
2.5
brief.
hours and then they keep extending it as you drive. Well, no, we actually meant 3
Oh,
hours.
is it in the
Well,
folder?
maybe 3.5 hours.
Well, it's the traffic.
Yeah.
Do you have it? Yes, I will pull it out.
I actually had it. I got a little distracted because I forgot to take my luggage out of my room and just check out at noon and it was packed. But I was sitting there at lunch and I thought, my luggage. And then I had to go get a new key.
Yeah, that's why I use the briefs, ignore the notes. Or use them.
Unless I want to introduce myself as you and then.
Yeah.
Maybe we could do that.
Yeah. See, I just changed my presence to Marion's presence.
So, Carol, you really need a new car?
Because your daughter
Or
always
is that
goes
this?
to
I don't need it yet, but
Oh,
you know what, if I could, I'd like to keep it for another 5 years.
Pablo's the oldest.
I know, it's like, my car's
Because I
like
have no
1999.
maintenance.
Yeah,
and it's just,
right?
it's just sick and sleep, the idea of.
I had no idea
Very
where
108.
For sure.
Really hard to
Wait a minute, now you didn't get any input.
Yeah, but sure.
Not really. Zymo is so beautiful.
Why with it?
I remember just being in the hospital.
Because I really
I like
better
it
class.
We have some friends that said, we'll pick a name when the child comes out, name it. I said, no. I said, I'm going to let the child be like, whatever I want. So we named it, or name him, shut up. We've named both of ours beforehand.
Just access wise.
Yeah, they wanted,
Oh, yeah.
I wanted to name Pablo Sago because it was the movie.
Yes.
But then you can have it.
No, I like,
What is what?
I like Seidel sounds more like recital or
Suicidal, that's what my friend said. That's yours.
Yeah, no.
Just like, phew, you're there.
So there's
It's
Pamela,
you're there.
and she grew into Renee, and Simon's definitely someone
Which is near sex.
What's funny about LA is
Be around for a while.
my first one is in Weston. It's right there down there.
Definitely
West
Weston.
Central. And we just thought we'll just call it West because I love West. I don't like Leslie as much.
CBS.
And I've now, being in LA, met like the other.
Yeah, that's what I would recommend.
Even though it's still extremely
Those
low on
two
popularity
towns.
for like, but in
Santa Monica would be
there's anything, there's like,
Unless you're
two
too.
people like LinkedIn or like, there's our class would like, it's good to know Jasper and
So are you coming here before you have a house, or are you gonna?
It won't be renting.
by the way.
Renting a house, or renting a
Rental.
Of course, my girls enjoy going to Starbucks. Sligo has a collection of all the different ways of making.
Oh, that's awesome. I just go with Marianne.
And I'm like, when can we throw them out?
Yeah.
This is really fun. We take a picture and throw them out?
Oh, yeah, there you go.
At least they have meat.
This is true. What's funny, I never knew I ever growing up playing, and I always wanted to. So, both my sons, Wes and Clayton, so they're like, we'll probably need a couple of kids. But in Clayton's preschool class, there's another kid. He was really upset. I think it's great. I never, you know, like the little name type things, there's never my name in there. Nice.
Yeah.
Me neither.
Yeah.
Still not.
Yeah.
Well, there's other Carols, it's just not Carol spelled the way.
That's not me.
So what happens to you at Starbucks?
They spell it C-A-R-O-L.
And how do you spell it?
K-A-R-E-L.
Which works so well with your last name, too.
Doesn't it?
really
It's strong.
Yeah. Anytime I meet anyone who's really famous, my aunt's name is always Ann. I know what Ann. It's never like, oh, my teenage daughter. Oh, my really.
Or are you supposed to be an aunt?
I am an aunt, but I think it's an older name, and then it's the British spelling.
Yeah.
I like ours, I think it's very good.
Yeah.
I like it. Oh, I was just saying, no one has a friend named Mary. They all have an aunt.
I have a friend named Marion.
Me.
Yay!
There's a song, you know the song Marion? Marion, why don't you carry on? It's
I
like a
don't know
gospel
that
song.
one. I thought you meant Marion the
Yeah.
librarian.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I didn't know that Marion was on.
Hey, am I
Gospel
blocking you?
song?
No, no, no.
It's
It's right.
done in a
You
gospel
ignore me.
style, beginning of
Yeah, you don't-
a Robin Hood.
Absolutely.
Oh, that's good.
But instead of the program being all about Robin Hood, it's actually about Maid Marian. There's like a twist on the narrative. And I think they use this gospel tune as the way to introduce
Very
it.
cute.
Cool.
So, Joan, we're all here, but in your own time, whenever you're ready, Joan, you get going.
All right. So I'm just reading, I'm not on, right? Oh, I am on. Am I on?
You're on the
Boss.
clock.
You're on the tape.
Whenever
We're on
you're
the
ready.
tape. I mean,
This is the tape's running.
Tape's running.
Oh, okay, all right. That's what I was thinking today. All right, so this is the brief. The industry is management consulting. This is a really large organization. It's 10,000 plus global. The participants are mixed. It's a lunch and learn, and it's voluntary. So it's a really sort of anybody and everybody here voluntarily kind of group. Having Presence runs every quarter as part of an open program of lunch and learns. The organization is vast, and all teams, no matter what their function, operate across a complex matrix structure in global groups. There is no function or job role that operates in isolation, and therefore success in the organization is dependent on the ability of employees to bring credibility to every interaction in order to be heard amongst the many voices and the competing demands. The program has been advertised on the internal learning management system, but HR and managers may also have specifically advised people to attend as part of their development. You are unaware of who these people are. Key stakeholders in AOB, corporate learning and development. Mind Jim is a trusted partner and has run this session many times with repeat business always following, which I tend to read as, so if you screw this up, you've ruined maybe the contract. So L&D always sit in on the session, and the same person has been the contact for the last 18 months. They therefore know the session well and expect the same experience every single time. However, previously the session has been run purely for recent graduates with the purpose of equipping them for client-facing roles. I'm going to give this back to you,
So
so I don't-
what's the industry again?
management consultant.
Man-
But it, did I read who all the participants could be?
Yeah, all levels.
Like it could be HR, it could be legal, it could be consultants, it could be finance. I mean,
So it's a, 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 it's a,
anybody who wants to show up anywhere in the organization. questions? Okay then. All right. I'm going to start my timer. Hope it doesn't. There we go. All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Mind Gym's workshop on having presence. My name is Joan Fiore, and I'm going to be here with you for the next 90 minutes, and we're going to be working on this. I think I've been hired for this because I spent a lot of time coaching all kinds of people on presence. Sometimes I'm called in to coach senior leaders, executives, CEOs, and amazingly enough, sometimes they don't have enough presence, but sometimes they actually have too much presence. So presence is something, you know, that you can move around, and sometimes it's more appropriate to have a lot, and sometimes less so. Another large group that I often get called in to work with are people who have been given the feedback, you don't have enough presence. Like you show up particularly with senior execs and you just disappear, you're not even there. And they come into me and they say, somebody's telling me I don't have enough presence, but I don't know what to do with it. So we're going to be covering all of that in the next 90 minutes. We believe your time is precious, so we're going to move through this quickly. Hopefully you'll all get engaged. It's highly participatory. If there's any questions you don't know the answer to, please ask. You're each going to get one of these handouts, and in it is all the material you'll need to walk away with, so no need to take notes. And we're off and ready to go. Any questions? No. Okay, this is the path we're going to follow. We're going to first spend some time talking about what are your thoughts and behaviors, what sorts of experiences have you had with presence, what is it anyway, when is it useful, what kinds are there, what are the various circumstances and useful ways to think about it and tell yourself about it. And then I'm going to turn it over to a colleague, and she's going to take you through all the various tactics to help alter your presence. And hopefully you'll walk away in the end with having spent some time thinking about your own situation and some helpful tips and tools to make you want to go out and work on it. Okay, so that's where we are. So let's start with presence. What is it? Whenever I think about it, I think of that joke about pornography. I know it's a little odd, but that is what I think about. I just think, you know, it's like that joke. It's like, well, you know it when you see it. You ever heard that joke? It's hard to describe. It's hard to describe. Like, what is it exactly? You know, I mean, if you want to give an analysis of it, it's like, I don't know, but you know it when you see it. So, what is it that you see when you see somebody with presence? What are you reacting to? Confidence. Mm-hmm. Great.
Size, taking up space.
Size and taking up space. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Charisma.
Charisma. Mm-hmm.
They can have an atmosphere about them
Yeah.
that's bigger than your physical space. It just goes out into the world.
That's a great expression, atmosphere. Yeah, they just kind of emit something. Other thoughts that you have about presence?
I don't know. Yeah.
That kind of covers it.
Maybe
They
voice.
look good in voice, yeah.
Yeah. Voice
Cool.
come into it.
Well, they
And
can
you
look
always look
bad
at, I was
as
going to
well.
say, I feel
I
like.
didn't know
There's
that.
something about the atmosphere about them is interesting, because they can, like, someone who's really out of place can have a lot of presence.
Yes,
Yeah.
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 Or, and like a lot of comics that are kind of like
Funky looking.
sloppy, or, I mean, I think Roseanne Barr is one of those.
Oh, yeah.
I don't say you say
Yeah.
she necessarily looks good. I don't think you mean by
I didn't
saying
mean that like that. I meant it, I think, more like the atmosphere. Like,
Yeah.
they carry themselves in a way that maybe they don't
Yeah.
care.
But so even somebody who's awkward has an awkward atmosphere
Absolutely.
that spreads the awkwardness and people just perceive.
Well, and you guys are bringing up a really good point. Implicit, I think, in what we're talking about there is sometimes there's a presence that we'd like to have, and sometimes there's a presence that maybe we wouldn't like to have, and it doesn't mean you're not noticed, right? I mean, it has something to do with being noticed for good or ill. It's a presence. Presence seems to be sort of a combination of both your mindset, actual behaviors you have, and authenticity. And we'll get a little bit into that in a bit. But I thought about what you said about size and stuff, and it is an interesting thing, right? People who have significant stature have a certain degree of presence, whether they want it or not. You know, I think of my son. I have a son who's 6'7", And he is very handsome, and there is no way he can walk in a room and heads don't turn. I mean, it's a very interesting thing to watch. And I think, yeah, well, that doesn't help me much if I want to have presence, because I can't make myself 6'7", and I don't really want to be 6'7". And he has the other issue, which is how does he have less presence when it's a good idea to have less presence. So if it meant I had to be 6'7" to have presence, I'd give up now. I mean, actually, I think everybody in this room, like, we could all walk away and say, well, I guess I'm never going to have that. But we here believe that there are actually a number of things that can contribute to presence, and size can help you, but if you don't have size, it's all good. There's all kinds of ways.
And when our daughters was in volleyball, they used to say, you can't teach height.
You can't teach height, absolutely, you can't teach it. All right, so we have this little image here of something that's creating ripples in the water, a little bit of an analogy to what presence is like. You can have a big presence. Imagine throwing a boulder in there, and if you were sitting next to that little pond, maybe you wouldn't be so happy to have a boulder in there. So when you think about that kind of presence, too much presence, you know, it's that person who takes up all the airspace, who it often can be quite annoying, just having too much presence. And then if you drop something really, really tiny, it'll have very little presence. So it's something we can absolutely vary. So to that end, actually before we go here, I'm going to have you come up and line up. And the way I'm going to have you line up is the last time you rode a bicycle, from this morning to never.
10 days?
A few days ago. Okay. So we're going to work in pairs, and you guys are a pair, and you can go sit down. You two are a pair, and you can go sit down together, and you three are a pair turned trio. Oh, you need to run over a chair.
Oh,
Okay, and I'm going to hand out.
We can move over.
Okay.
I'm gonna scoop.
I'm going to hand these out and have you open the first flap, the first seal. And as you do that, you'll see on the top, there's a little exercise that I like you guys to do with each other. And, excuse me. And up here you'll see a time when you had presence. So think to yourself, what is a time you had presence? What were you thinking? And what kind of reaction did you have to that? And the other one is the time when you feel you had low presence. What were you thinking and what was your reaction? And then just share that with each other. You'll have 2 minutes.
Are we supposed to write in there or just talk?
By all means, write in it, write and talk, whatever you think would work best.
I don't know.
Sorry, when we have that, purposefully or accidentally?
Whatever comes to mind. Just when you think, well, yeah, that was a time I had high presence.
I had presents this morning. Did. Can't wait till it's over. No, I'm kidding. I was thinking, enthusiasm. I was thinking, I keep peace going. Confidence, that's what I was thinking.
How did you react?
Confident peace. Like, I do mind being in the spot.
Oh, I see, okay. Otherwise, how did you react to that?
Are you never in high presence?
Sharing, if you have
I
to.
know.
Yes, we do. Sure.
Making.
So how did you react as a
Go ahead and just start sharing.
Do you like, presents?
Hello, let's go.
What did I say? Also had low presence. I was in a client meeting. I was a big client. And they were looking for some things they wanted to do.
If you get low
So I really just needed to.
Are we what?
Sharing with each other.
Yes, we're sharing. He's just reading my paper. And he's telling me it is, so I really don't actually have to say anything. It's everything that he says.
Oh. I said the same thing for low presence with clients. not new though, but just in that tape. And I'm thinking, is that the right way to do it?
So yeah, when?
Yeah.
And like, you know, some clients, they want to be kind of like loud and their culture is that way, and then some, so like, this was a group where I needed to learn what, I needed to like learn.
Under the table.
I was in a coaching situation, and I was focused on that. And I was in how did they react? It's hard.
About 20 more seconds.
Someone say something interesting, I'll start thinking
Because it's not your time, maybe it's not your time.
Contribute, right.
The mayor would be present.
Yeah, I feel like
Yeah,
it's
present.
more exhausting
Yeah.
because you have to be collecting so much information and I feel like giving it information.
Ten.
Well, I agree that whatever's
Nine.
natural requires more energy. I'm not sure where it falls.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Great. Okay. Somebody want to share one or two of the experiences you came up with?
Well, I feel low presence when I feel intimidated by people around me.
Okay. So you think you're acting with low presence when you feel intimidated. What are you saying to yourself at that time?
What am I saying to myself?
Uh-huh.
I think it's the old amygdala.
Amygdalas don't talk.
So,
What did you say? I don't.
He said the amygdala, which is the lower part of your brain. I said, but amygdalas don't talk. So,
Oh.
are you aware of anything, saying anything to yourself?
I think it's more in a guttural emotional reaction.
Okay.
So Bear, do you feel amongst us, how do we compare in that spectrum for
Well, when
you? Like in this meeting, I find your voice sort of small, so is that,
because I feel intimidated.
yeah.
This is getting very.
You don't have to answer. It's okay.
I just thought it was an example of.
No, I checked out everyone's profile on Facebook.
Yeah.
And I mean, not on LinkedIn. And at first I was somewhat intimidated because I didn't have a training background.
Okay. Okay, so that is what. So in a way, that would be the kind of thing you might be saying to yourself.
Yeah.
Oh dear, I don't have the same thing as these other people. So
Yeah.
that is a really good awareness. It's a good question. Others. So one more example of low presence that you've had the experience.
It's difficult for me to. That's it.
So you got to think of one.
No, I thought of one, but we all know I like to talk and I like to be part of the gang. I like to contribute. I want to. So when it might be time for me to have a low presence, it's difficult.
And that's a great awareness to have, because I know, like for all of us, we tend more toward one or the other. One or the other might be easier for us, and so it's good to be aware that might be a challenge and a great direction to go work on. Because I know certain circumstances I might have exactly the same experience. I think we all struggle with one or the other.
It's really boring being low presence.
What is boring?
Being low presence is really boring.
Is that boring for you?
I think it is really boring.
What is? So tell me your experience.
I had to go to a sales meeting with one of my colleagues, and the deal was that I would try not to say anything.
We're all laughing.
And it was really, I got really bored, like really bored.
Interesting. So
And the meeting was boring.
So one of the ways you keep your own energy up is to
Contribute.
And so
Yes.
and so you're saying, when you were not talking, what were you doing? What were you thinking?
I was trying to pay attention, but my mind started to wander.
So you were
I was thinking, there's quite a lot of traffic on. It was difficult to stay. It was actually, with low presence, it was difficult to stay present.
Yeah.
Yeah, with a T rather than a CE. You know.
Yeah.
And but it was, which meant I had to concentrate. I had to concentrate really hard, just to
Yeah.
loads of effort just to be there.
Yeah, we were having that same conversation over here. But it's exhausting here. When it's the thing you're not used to, it's hard.
Okay,
So
but
it sounds like
I
you
think
guys-
high presence it becomes exhausting for me.
Yes.
But then when you get in a flow though, there is energy behind it.
So give me one, before we move on, I'd love to hear one example of high presence and what that looked like and what you were saying to yourself, what you were thinking, what that felt like. Anybody? Because it sounds like we got a lot of high presence.
Well, I wrote down when I'm leading my team, and I feel like I know what I'm doing, and I'm helping. I mean, I'm high presence, but I'm still listening. It's not like I'm lacking out for everyone. But you're moving it forward. I'm keeping my energy up, and so that's what it looks like to me.
And do you have any awareness of what you're saying to yourself?
When I'm in the flow, I'm not really saying much to myself. But when it's a situation where it's, I tell myself like I can do this, whatever. It's a new situation.
So that's great. This is all good. So hold on to all those thoughts and all those experiences, because what I'm going to do now is give you well, we're going to look at a model that we might find helpful. I'm going to put it up over here too. And what we've done here is we have a 2x2 model that thinks about presence, and we find this helpful, I think, about whether it's high or low, which is pretty easy. Sounds like we have a good understanding of what's high presence and low presence, but where it's controlled or uncontrolled. And that might not be a way that we've often thought about it. I know when I first saw that, I thought, oh, huh. But actually, I think we can find this really helpful. So, which really leads to 4 boxes, and we're going to run through them in a minute. That high controlled presence is that presence that I think we've all been talking about when we're talking high. It's, I'm someone special, I'm confident, I'm worth listening to, I come across, I have that some aura, you're inclined to want to hear me, you're interested in me, you are sort of drawn towards me. And you find yourself getting the attention, maybe even if you didn't particularly want to necessarily, but now you're interested. Low controlled presence, on the other hand, is an interesting one, because I really didn't hear any of you describe this, and this is a very particular kind of thing. You're staying low, you're staying low presence because you want to. Not because somebody put you on a dare, so, you know.
No, I did want to. I did want to, but it wasn't my, like,
Yeah.
I knew I needed to as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
it's
know,
just different.
and it's actually a very active state, which is perhaps in part why I found it exhausting, because it takes a lot of attention, listening, and observing, so you're really quite active. It takes a lot of eye contact, you're quite present, but you're not taking up a lot of space. So we want to be high presence controlled or low presence controlled. And I'm going to talk now for a minute about the uncontrolled versions. When I think of the uncontrolled high, I think of what Muhammad Ali, right? You know, that's like, I am the greatest. You know, that's one form. High uncontrolled presence might be your 4-year-old throwing a major tantrum, and Fred Meyer gets there. You can't ignore that 4-year-old throwing that tantrum, but it's not terribly controlled. What are some other examples of what does it look like, and what does it make you feel like when somebody has uncontrolled high presence?
They don't care about anybody else in the room. It's all about them.
Absolutely, that is pretty typical. That sense that it's about them. Okay.
It's embarrassing. Like, it makes me think of the high presence person who's slightly drunk. It's just sort of like it can be embarrassing.
There's no filter.
Yeah, absolutely. So we all know that person, right?
Can I just say, I think Ali was controlled presence. I think all of his stuff was deliberate, and I thought it was strategic and well done.
I actually would agree.
Oh,
I think
okay.
he did it for a purpose.
Yeah.
But imagine him sitting in your next staff meeting. You know?
Why don't we do it in a staff meeting? Because it was all deliberate.
True enough. I think that was his brain. I mean, I would agree.
But what about somebody like Hitler, a demagogue? Would that definitely be uncontrolled? Or would it be
He was controlled.
You think it was controlled?
He knew what he was doing.
Yeah, that's the presence he wanted to command. And it worked. I mean, if you want to call that working. He brought the people along with him, and
Yeah.
that was it. To his point, I mean, it was a strategic presence.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we've all had dealings with this person, so.
Get over it.
Love.
Who? Who are you talking about?
Hitler,
Hitler.
Yeah.
Mussolini, all of them, they're right.
High control. So low, uncontrolled presence. This is really more, this is the, you come up to me after a meeting last week and you say, well, remember in that meeting last week, and I think to myself, I didn't notice you were there. Were you there? And then I feel bad that I didn't notice that you were there, right? So that is the person who really just disappears. And, you know, I suppose there might be a time when that could serve you well, like you just really want to fade into the woodwork, but mostly it doesn't tend to serve very well, particularly you guys. As I understand it, you all work in a context where you have to have your voice heard. You don't want to just disappear into the woodwork, right? I mean, I don't think it would be very rare that I would have that experience. Does that resonate with you?
Yes.
All right, so one of the things I'd like you to do now is pair up this way now. You two as a pair, you two as a pair, you two as a pair, and you join.
Okay.
And just take 2 minutes and think about when are times that you should have high presence and when are some, actually, why don't this group do when are times you should have high presence? I've just changed my mind. Why don't all 4 of you come together? Talk about good times for high presence, and 3 of you talk about good times to have low controlled presence. This is just control.
And this is high control?
Yes.
We're high control.
When is it good to be high control?
When you're running a mind game session. Okay. When you have to
When you're
run
trying to
an
find out,
idea.
like,
When you're in a situation where you really need to get your point across, and you're really trying to
low control.
Low control. So it sounds like
communicate
we're saying
something that
anytime
you want
we
people to buy in
let
on.
it come out more.
Yeah,
Right.
need to be concise, to the point.
So that'd be
This is why I need
doing
it. This is
meetings
what
and
I need.
meetings
Why I
Yes.
need it.
with the client and said
Definitely have to be.
Yeah,
communicated.
again, depending, like not
Yeah.
pushing.
But if you're trying to influence people, if you're trying to
Right.
have influence on someone
Yeah.
in a higher position, you
Or even below,
Good.
too. Look, this is why
Maybe
you
you
have to do this.
I
I know you don't want to do
I
this.
feel like there could be another alternative.
And this is the good outcome of why we're going to do it. So,
So when high presence? Oh, we're just doing
We're
slow.
just
Oh,
doing,
just slow. Okay.
Okay, 10 more seconds.
Controlled presence.
lot of times doesn't
We
really
nailed
it.
As a parent, be mindful of where your children are at all. Especially when they're young.
I just think there are less times aware on the road, so we saw them
That's
quickly.
high control of
Or we're just really.
5,
things that are going around you.
4, 3, 2, 1.
That's awareness.
So let's just take a few minutes and you guys share a few of the ones that you came up with this group, and they'll do the same. This is times for low control presence.
Yeah.
Well, we thought of times when we needed to give space to another person to shine or to step up to the
Yeah.
front within coaching, or interviewing, or
With the client or
With the
junior
client.
staff.
giving that space to take the stage, basically.
Absolutely. All good, all those times, perfect. And sometimes one of the things you find is people with high control presence sometimes strategically take low control presence, right? To get some information before they go back into high. So those are all great examples. What about these, you guys, what did you want?
What do we answer? We're answering our side now?
Yeah.
Not their side, our
No,
side.
yours, yeah. What are times that it's good to have high control presence?
We were thinking of if you had a meeting and you needed something specific, and so you needed to be on point, and I need it, and this is why I need it, and this is the resources I need, and you need to sell this to them. So really good to be focused and assertive, absolutely have your game and you know what you need.
Perfect.
And that would be helpful.
Yeah, so I get that attention to you and you want to be taken seriously. Great.
Right.
Any others?
Get your point across, influencing upwards. We then had a conversation about whether or not you needed as a parent.
whether you need it or not as a parent.
Yeah, and then we started discussing whether or not there was a difference between presence and awareness.
And did you get someplace with it?
Not really.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I'd be interested to know what you think.
I don't know what you meant by awareness versus.
I'm not sure if we did either.
Oh. Also, a little bit hard
Well,
to respond.
I said, you know, maybe we need to be high controlled as a parent because we need to know everything that's going around and be, I didn't say the word, but being like present, making sure, and you know, so was that more self-awareness than like
I
being
think-
aware of everything that's going around instead of being presence
Mhm.
aware.
Well, it's interesting. It's not like I actually have the answer to that, but my reaction to what you're saying is just sort of, sometimes you do want high presence, controlled presence, because you want your kids to be listening, and sometimes you want to have low controlled presence because you want them to be shining,
down
and that you
and
don't want a kid who's always going, you know, is this okay, Mom? Is this okay?
Right.
That kind of thing. So, I remember, that's a very funny thing, I used to live in the South, and one of the most wonderful things about living in the South is that they teach their children to say, yes, ma'am,
Oh,
and yes, sir, and no, ma'am, and no, sir, and then I moved to the West Coast, and
Refreshing.
it lasted maybe a week in school, and my kids came home, and there was no more of yes, ma'am, and no, ma'am, and I said, no, this is a yes, ma'am situation. You know, like they were like, not interested, you know. Anyway, all right, so what I'd like to do now is talk about some research that, well, maybe we'll come back to this. We talked about what is presence, how would you recognize it, when is it high, when is it low, when is it controlled, when it's not. Now I want to begin to talk about how do you get there. And I'd like you to look at this for a second. Most of us psychologists actually think about us as in a flow between what we think and how we feel and what we do. And it is drawn this way very particularly because each of these interacts with every other one of them. But we're going to spend most of our time in the next little bit talking about thoughts, what you're actually thinking. Because it's very hard to impact how you're feeling by somebody. Has anybody ever said to you, well, just don't feel that way? You know? And it's like, I would stop feeling this way if I could, you know, or feel happy. And it's like, well, if I could, I just would, but I can't, right? So very hard to control your own feelings. Behaviors, we can control our behaviors to some degree or another. We can't control whether we're tall, but we can control what we do. And somebody named Amy Cuddy, if you're interested in this, you should look at her YouTube or TED Talk. She gathered together a lot of research looking at what happens when we alter our behaviors and how that actually impacts not only our thoughts and feelings and our presence, but it actually even alters our biochemistry. And taking strong power positions impact everything. And it actually can get you feeling differently about yourself, thinking differently, and make your biochemistry map to a strong sense of self and low cortisol, so low stress. So it's an interesting thing, and you can intervene there. But we're going to spend most of the time talking about intervening at the level of our thoughts. Aaron Beck is a cognitive behavior theorist, and there's a whole bunch of people following after him who have done a lot of research on how thinking, if we change our thinking, we can very much impact our feelings and our behavior. It's a little bit why I was pushing you guys a bit, you know, like I push myself all the time on this. It's like, what are we thinking that evokes a certain feeling? What are we thinking? Because it'll show up in our behavior instantly. So, I want to talk for a minute about this first one, confident uncertainty. The thought would be something like, I am not sure what's going to happen, but I know I can deal with it, okay? Right now, I have no idea what any of you are going to do. You could do anything, really. I hope you won't, I hope you won't, but you could. And I have to be up here with the sense of, I don't know what you're going to do, but I'm confident I can handle it. When I think I'm confident I can handle it, chances are I'm going to appear confident. So imagine if I were up here and I was thinking, you guys could do anything. I don't know what you're going to do. And I thought, oh my God, what if you do something and I don't know what to do? Just that thought, if you say that to yourself, you will feel anxious. I can feel it. I actually feel anxious. So if we sit there and we say things to ourselves like, oh my God, what will happen? Worse, what if I said to myself, you guys could do anything and I'm just gonna screw it up. If you do something and I don't know how to handle it, I'm gonna look like an idiot, I'm gonna be a fool, I'm gonna be embarrassed, I'm gonna fail. Well, pretty soon, I am gonna just look like, God, get me out of here. And you will know it, right? And as I begin to emanate that kind of energy, I'm going to get something back from you that is complementary to that and is going to go downhill fast, right? So this capacity is really important to think that to yourself. A lot of times we're not aware that we're actually thinking something. This next one, purpose beyond pleasing. It's an interesting one. It says, I believe in staying true to myself even when others don't like it. In other words, I'm not spending all my energy just trying to please you. So think about it this way. If I am with you, Seb, and all I care about is pleasing you, then all of my center of gravity is over here on you, right? And I've just disappeared. I have truly just disappeared. It's all over here. So it's almost like thinking, if I don't have a self, it would be very hard for me to have any presence because there's no one here. It's interesting. I saw Steve Ballmer, the past CEO of Microsoft, just a month ago. He gave a graduation speech, and in all those graduation speeches, there was something else. He was like, 3 things to do to be successful. Anyway, one of them was, he said, I don't care. You have to start seeing her. I don't care what you believe, but whatever you do, have a point of view. He said, because if you don't have a point of view, I can't be bothered with you. There's a strong statement for someone with a lot of presence. Okay. So, but it's an interesting thought. It's really not inconsistent with this. So, this next one, equal. This one is, you and I, we're the same. Right? We're all human beings. My mother used to say, we're all the same as everybody else. That important person has to put their pants on one leg at a time, just like you and me, right? Maybe, what about the rest of you? Have we all had experiences where we think, oh my God, I'm going to be with this really important person, and we start talking ourselves into not feeling important?
Every day.
Every day? Wow. So this is a really important one.
Yeah, I'm taking it in.
Good. What about the rest of you? Is this an experience you're aware of?
Yeah.
Yeah. I had somebody I worked with one time who said, you know how I handle this? He said, I picture the person that I'm most intimidated by with his underwear on his head. I thought, I don't know if that would work for me, but it's a thought. So this next one is positive energy. What do you think about that? Do you use that? Tell me, how do you use it?
A lot of times when I'm going into a meeting or a new situation, I'll pause outside of that door and just recognize that what I bring into that room, they'll feel, and I want to make sure I make a positive impact.
And so you know you can, you can put out that
I
positive.
can manipulate that energy, yeah.
Anybody else?
I would say I could work on that more, but I have a colleague who, she just makes you feel so good, and she really makes you feel like she cares about you, and I don't know how she does it, like really everyone. So maybe you're going to teach me how.
Well, it's a little bit of this. It's like almost like believing you can. She must put out a lot of positive energy towards you, and you feel special, maybe, or
Yeah, and genuine.
Yeah.
I appreciate that point. I have a very difficult boss, and I mean, I'm totally out of my league right now. And yet, I never think what I say makes any impact at all. In fact, I feel I get ridiculed. But he happened to say something the other day about an employee relation issue, which we are entrenched in a couple countries, and he he literally verbatim repeated what I had said to him, that he had ridiculed just a few weeks prior. And
Oh,
he owned
that's
it.
great.
And I thought, okay, well, maybe I'm making a positive impact.
That's
He's not gonna
wonderful.
give me credit that I did, but, you know, I just become so intimidated by this man.
So that
And
is a
yet I
wonderful
thought,
thing
okay,
to
I
know.
can't take it, own it, you know, because you're not gonna get that bone again. But, I mean, that's true, maybe I am making a positive impact. I just don't know
No,
it.
you take that and say,
I am making a positive
impact. I am. Absolutely. That's wonderful because you won't, like you said, I'm not going to get that bone again, but you know what? Put that back there and keep going back to it. You know you are, even if you'll never give you recognition. Last one, generous thoughts. This is almost like the inverse. Like just assume that the energy that's going to come toward you is positive, and and in a way it will be to some degree or another. If you assume, if we sit there and we think, oh, everybody's going to hate me and they're not going to be interested, you know, or paranoid, like they're just out to get me, I'm going to start looking like suspicious and weird and not friendly, and so then people aren't going to be friendly, right? So all of these are things that we can say to ourselves that instantly impact how we come across and the kind of presence we have. I want to say just one more thing before I have us do a final wrap up, and that is